Imagine this: four shadowy riders charging through a crimson sky, each one bringing humanity's deepest fears to life. They carry no flags, say nothing, yet their arrival screams the end of everything familiar. These aren't just figures from an old tale. They're icons that have haunted our minds for nearly 2,000 years. What makes these four so chilling that they still pop up in our films, games, and nightmares? Today, we're unraveling the apocalyptic riddle that began with a lone man's visions on a barren island and became humanity's most unforgettable symbols of dread. Buckle up. After this, you'll never see horses the same way. Around the year 95, a man named John was banished to Patmos, a rugged Greek island that was Rome's answer to a high-security prison. This wasn't a cozy getaway. It was where the empire sent people they wanted erased. John landed there for preaching about Jesus Christ, which didn't sit well with Emperor Domitian's ego. But here's where it gets wild. On that desolate rock, John had visions so vivid and strange they'd reshape the Western world. He scribbled them down in the Book of Revelation, the Bible's final act and definitely its most epic. Talk about making the best of a bad situation. This wasn't random timing. Christians faced brutal crackdowns under Domitian, who insisted on being worshipped as a deity. Picture being forced to kneel to a guy in a shiny crown calling himself God, while your friends were thrown to wild beasts for saying no. John's visions offered hope to those in desperate need. Revelation is part of a genre called apocalyptic literature, the ancient world's equivalent of gritty sci-fi thrillers. These writings used bold symbols and cryptic language to comment on real-world politics without getting the writer in hot water. Smart move, right? The word apocalypse means unveiling, not world's end like we assume now. John wasn't just forecasting doom, he was exposing hidden truths about power, justice, and divine plans. The Four Horsemen were his way of showing that worldly empires eventually fall apart. Why have John's visions stuck around for millennia? They hit on fears that never go out of style: conquest, conflict, starvation, and death. These aren't just old issues. They're the all-time chart toppers of human misery, remixed for every era. John's imagery was meant to shock and stick in your head. Four riders on colorful horses, each wielding tools of chaos. It's like a blockbuster trailer from 2,000 years ago, designed to leave you speechless. These visions spread like gossip in the early Christian world. People copied them, passed them around, and added their own spins. The Four Horsemen became a quick way to say, things are about to go south, a concept that never seems to lose its relevance. The first rider bursts onto the scene on a white horse, armed with a bow and sporting a crown. Looks like a hero, doesn't it? Hold on, this guy's as trustworthy as a shady street vendor. He's Conquest, and that white horse is just a clever costume for trickery. Here's the twist. Some scholars say this rider stands for a fake kind of peace or sneaky conquest. That bow he's got? No arrows are mentioned. It's like bringing a toy gun to a showdown. All flash, no bang. This hints at winning through lies rather than open battle. His crown is a Stephanos in Greek, not a king's crown, but the kind of wreath you'd get for winning a race. This isn't a born ruler. He's a self-made conqueror who climbed the ranks with charisma. Think less noble prince and more smooth-talking warlord with a great marketing team. Romans would have caught the reference instantly. Their victorious generals rode white horses in grand parades crowned with wreaths and flaunting their triumphs. John was saying, those fancy victory parties you love, they're actually bad news in disguise. No arrows mentioned? That opens another angle. Maybe this rider doesn't need them because his takeover is already done. He's not fighting. He's gloating over a world that hasn't even noticed it's been outsmarted. Creepy, right? In today's world, this figure gets reimagined in wild ways. From scheming politicians in movies to cunning masterminds in games, he's the slickest of the four. In the 1991 film The Rapture, he's a charming trickster, while video games often cast him as the sneakiest horseman. Some theologians tie this rider to the Antichrist, a figure who tricks the world with empty promises of harmony. It's like a wolf dressed as a sheep, except this wolf's riding a fancy horse and wearing a crown that'd make your bank account cry. White horses carry big meaning across cultures, often linked to gods or heroes. By putting conquest on one, John flipped the script, showing that even the grandest symbols can hide shady motives. In art, this rider's look has evolved. Medieval paintings showed him as a dashing knight, but Renaissance artists gave him darker vibes. By the 20th century, he was a poster child for fake promises, kind of like those too-good-to-be-true ads you scroll past online. The scariest part? This rider is given the power to conquer. He's not some rogue troublemaker. He's got the universe's green light to wreak havoc. It's like getting an official invite to ruin everything. The second rider storms in on a blazing red horse, wielding a massive sword and one clear mission: to rip peace away from the world. If the first rider was a sneaky salesman, this one's brutally honest about causing chaos, and that makes him even more terrifying. That red hue isn't just for show. In ancient times, red meant blood, violence, and Mars, the war god. This horse isn't just red. It's fiery, like it's burning through everything in its path. Imagine a conflict so fierce, even the horse looks like it's glowing with rage. His sword, called a machaira in Greek, isn't some fancy dueling blade. It's a heavy, brutal weapon built for mass destruction. Think less elegant fencing foil and more giant meat cleaver for battle. Here's the chilling part. This rider doesn't start wars. He just removes whatever's keeping them at bay. The text says he takes peace from the earth, suggesting peace was the only thing holding back humanity's worst instincts. Once it's gone, people turn on each other like it's second nature. We're apparently one rider away from total mayhem. John's audience knew this pain firsthand. They lived through the Jewish-Roman wars, bloody conflicts that tore regions apart. They'd seen neighbors betray neighbors and cities burn. This rider was their worst memories galloping back to life. The red horse has charged through centuries of art and stories. Medieval painters showed him as a fierce warrior. Renaissance artists made him more monstrous, and today he might be a missile or a rebel leader. The look changes, but the fear stays the same. What's clever about this rider is he doesn't need to swing that sword himself. He just pulls peace out of the equation, and humans handle the rest. It's like unplugging society's safety net and watching it crash. Apparently, we need a cosmic babysitter to keep us in line. Psychologically, this rider taps into our struggle with our own aggressive side. Every culture has tales of a lost, peaceful era, and every generation worries their fights could end it all. He's the face of our fear that we might destroy ourselves. Modern wars make this rider feel all too real. Nukes, cyber attacks, and global unrest make peace taken from the earth sound like tomorrow's headlines. The red horse doesn't seem so mythical when a single tweet could spark a world war. The creepiest thing? This rider's efficiency. No armies, no plans. Just show up, yank peace away, and watch humans do what they do best: fight. It's like he's got us all figured out, and we're not exactly proud of the picture. The third rider rolls in on a black horse, clutching scales like the world's grimmest bookkeeper. Unlike his brothers, who deal in lies and violence, this one's all about cold, hard economic ruin. He doesn't fight or flatter. He just makes sure there's never enough to go around. Those scales aren't about fairness like in a courtroom. They're for weighing grain, but the prices he announces are outrageous. A day's pay for a handful of wheat? That's not a budget. It's starvation with a spreadsheet. A voice calls out, "A measure of wheat for a day's wages. 3 measures of barley for a day's wages." That's like dropping $200 on a single sandwich. Good luck explaining that to your family. This rider turns basic needs into luxury goods. Then the voice adds, "Don't touch the oil or wine." That means the rich keep their fancy treats while everyone else scrambles for crumbs. It's inequality turned up to 11, where the elite sip fine wine while the rest fight over stale bread. The black horse's color isn't just gloomy, it's absence itself. In ancient times, black stood for the loss of light, hope, and plenty. This rider doesn't bring disaster. He takes away what keeps us going. Talk about crashing the party. John's audience knew hunger well. Wars, disasters, and bad leadership caused food shortages they'd lived through. They understood the panic of empty pantries and hoarding neighbors. This rider was their everyday fear of not having enough to survive. The scales twist justice itself. Instead of balancing right and wrong, they measure out just enough food to keep people alive, but not enough to live well. It's fairness turned into a weapon, which feels way too familiar in today's world. In medieval art, this rider was a skeletal figure with unbalanced scales. Renaissance painters showed tiny grains weighed against heavy coins, shouting, "Money rules, and most can't afford it." The message still hits hard. Today's economy gives this rider new tricks. Market games, fake shortages, and trade wars can starve people without a single drought. The black horse now races through financial systems, wrecking lives as easily as any storm. What makes this rider so unsettling is his precision. No emotions, just numbers, calculating exactly how little you need to scrape by. He's not out to end it all fast. He's running a slow-burn collapse that maximizes misery while keeping things barely functional. That's evil with a calculator. Now comes the rider who haunts everyone's dreams. Death, riding a pale horse that looks like it's staggered out of a morgue. The Greek word chloros means pale, green, or sickly yellow. Think of a corpse left out too long. This isn't a horse. It's a nightmare with hooves. Death doesn't ride solo. He's got Hades tagging along like a grim assistant. They're the ultimate cleanup team. Death handles the end, and Hades collects what's left. They've got power over a quarter of the earth, meaning this is no random chaos. It's planned, large-scale destruction. That pale color carries weight across cultures. Long ago, pale or greenish skin meant plague or decay. This horse isn't just death, it's the kind that eats you away slowly. Medieval artists painted it with hollow eyes and bony ribs, like death itself decided to take a ride. Unlike the others, this rider brings the whole package. While his brothers each deliver one disaster, death serves up everything: swords, hunger, plagues, and wild animals. It's every possible way to go, wrapped into one terrifying figure. Think of him as the ultimate multi-tool of doom. Hades tagging along adds extra dread. In Greek myths, Hades stayed in the underworld, rarely stepping out. Having him trail death across the earth means the line between life and death is gone. It's not just people dying. Death itself is on the hunt. Other cultures have their death figures, but none match this rider's cold efficiency. The Grim Reaper swings a scythe solo. Mexico's Santa Muerte might cut deals. This guy? He's death as a force of nature, unstoppable as a tsunami. That quarter of the earth bit is grim math. About 2 billion people today. This isn't a small disaster, or even a big war. It's a global wipeout that makes every historical calamity look like a bad day. The pale horse plays for keeps. In pop culture, this rider steals the show. From Terry Pratchett's sarcastic death in Discworld to the spooky specter in horror flicks, he's unforgettable. In games, he's often the final boss, because when death arrives, it's game over. This rider's psychological punch goes beyond fear of dying. He's the dread that death might not be fair or natural. The others have human drives, power, conflict, greed. But death? He just exists. No motives, no deals, no mercy. The pale horse's real terror is its certainty. You might outsmart conquest, broker peace, or share food to stop famine. But death, it always wins. This rider isn't about fearing death. It's about fearing a grim, organized end we can't escape. Here's the cool part. The Four Horsemen didn't stay trapped in ancient scrolls. They broke out and charged into humanity's imagination, becoming symbols bigger than any one religion or culture. It's like they got a VIP pass to every art form out there. Medieval artists went all in, painting them in vivid, scary detail in manuscripts from the 12th and 13th centuries. They got creative. Sometimes death swung a scythe instead of trailing Hades, or war wore the latest armor. These weren't just holy pictures, they were early apocalyptic fan fiction. The Renaissance upped the game with Albrecht Dürer's 1498 woodcut, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It set the standard for how we see them, looking less like biblical icons and more like a deadly squad ready to roll. Writers couldn't get enough of them. From old morality plays to modern books, the horsemen signal trouble's coming. Vicente Blasco Ibáñez's 1916 novel, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, tied them to World War I, showing every era finds its own disasters in them. Hollywood jumped on board, with the 1921 silent film of Ibáñez's book turning Rudolph Valentino into a star. Since then, the Horsemen have popped up in everything from deep dramas to cheesy horror, always signaling things are about to get ugly. Video games gave them a new playground. In Darksiders, you play as the Horsemen, and Red Dead Redemption names a horse Death. There's something thrilling about controlling these ancient forces, even if it's just on a screen. Modern artists keep them fresh. Street art paints them as greedy CEOs, eco-activists see them in climate crises, and cartoonists use them for everything from pandemics to politics. They're like a visual shorthand for what scares us now. What's amazing is how flexible they are. Medieval folks saw plague and war. Cold War kids saw nukes, and now we might see them in AI gone wrong or melting ice caps. They're like shapeshifters for whatever keeps us up at night. Why do these ancient icons still spook us after 2,000 years? It's because our deepest fears haven't changed much, no matter how fancy our tech gets. We've got rockets and Wi-Fi, but we're still wired to worry about the same stuff our ancestors did. Human nature's got a knack for anxiety. Apocalyptic images do something weirdly helpful. They give our vague worries a face. Instead of fretting about something bad, the horsemen give us clear targets to point at. It's like having a nightmare you can actually explain to a friend. It feels less heavy when it's named. There's also a strange comfort in scripted endings. If the world's end is written in an old book, at least someone's got a plan. Chaos with a plot feels less scary than random disasters. The horsemen make us think even the worst days follow some kind of rule book. They tap into what shrinks call existential dread, that gut punch of knowing we're mortal and everything we love is fragile. The horsemen cover our big four fears: being controlled, conquest; losing harmony, war; running out of stuff, famine; and kicking the bucket, death. It's like a playlist of our worst nightmares. Every culture's got its own end-of-world stories, but they all hit similar notes. Norse Ragnarok, Hindu Kali Yuga, Aztec cycles. They're all the same fears in different costumes. The horsemen just nailed the formula so well they became the gold standard. They also embody our fear of losing control. These aren't storms you can prep for or enemies you can talk down. They're forces that just happen, no matter your plans or prayers. In a world where we love to feel in charge, they remind us some things are way out of our hands. Today, we've got apocalyptic thinking, seeing every problem as a sign the world's about to implode. Social media makes every crisis feel like the big one. The horsemen give us ancient names for modern worries, from climate chaos to political shouting matches. What's wild is how they help us deal with shared pain. After big disasters, artists and writers lean on horseman imagery to make sense of it all. It's like saying, this awful thing fits into a pattern we've always known. It's like digging up old symbols to cope with new wounds. After chasing these four apocalyptic writers through 2,000 years of human thought, one thing's clear. They're not really about the world ending. They're about us, our fears, our fights, and our constant worry about things we can't control. They've lasted because they capture something eternal about being human, knowing everything we care about can vanish. But here's a twist. Maybe that's not all bad. These symbols stick around because they help us name our terrors, work through our worries, and find meaning in the mess. They remind us humanity's faced big threats before and kept moving. Next time you spot horsemen in a movie, painting, or news story, ask yourself, What are our horsemen today? What's riding that pale horse in our techie world? The question might matter more than the answer.